Hello, are you here to debate?
Hello, hey man, what's up? I just stopped by the stream.
All right. What's your name and how old are you?
Hey, I'm Matt, and I am 29 years old.
Okay, Matt, what are you here to talk about?
Hey, well, I mean, I was scrolling by your stream, and you got this like list up here. Do you mind if I ask, like, are these just like base stances that you have?
Sure, if you want to, yeah.
So I guess the questions that I have, I mean, I obviously like we're gonna disagree on some stuff, but I guess the real big questions that I had were number 1 and number 7. I guess let's start at 7 if that's cool with you.
7. Okay, sure. What about it?
Abolish police and prisons? Like, you
Mm-hmm.
mean like just like wholesale? Like, I might be misunderstanding, and obviously, like, it's like a 4-word thing. So, is there maybe some like more nuance behind that, or is it just like literally abolish everything, get rid of it all?
So the stance of abolition, as it was conceived in the 70s by like abolitionists like Angela Davis, is saying that we want to remove the systems in place that control the police and prisons, which are the carceral and retributive state of justice that we currently operate under, and we want to move to more of a transformative and restorative state of justice, which would focus more on rehabilitation and crime prevention. And by doing this and focusing on the systemic issues that cause crime, we would see a decrease in the need for police and prisons as we know them today. And this decrease would allow us to essentially reform these institutions into just completely different bodies. And then once you've done that, it would be a bottom-up model. You would no longer have police and prisons as we currently know them.
Okay, so just so I can kind of like, I guess, understand, it's more of a vision that you're moving towards, like as a progression. Is that correct?
Yeah, abolishment of police and prison would be the final step. It would never be the first step.
Do you mind outlining like how that might look? Like, I guess the steps and processes, and then what the end results, I guess, would actually look like. Like, what would be the practical on the ground explanation of that?
So it just depends on how each society wants to do it. The way I believe we should do it is we focus on these major issues that create crime, which in our country is poverty. By focusing on poverty, we would be able to make it where we would have the bulk of people in our prison system in America are in it due to crimes of poverty. So that's drug crime, property crime, things like that. We would save incarceration for people that commit like very heavy crimes, but the type of incarceration they would go to would be like they'd go to either long-term care centers or long-term rehabilitation centers. Right? We would instead of right now, which is what we do, is we incarcerate as a punishment. What we would move to is we would house people who need some level of care, whether that care be rehabilitative care or mental care or what have you. We would focus a lot more on getting people reintegrated back into society and the like. When it comes, we would probably utilize house arrest a lot more often. We would utilize community policing. We would utilize social workers a bit more, just to limit the need for police as we know them. We wouldn't allow police to really do any, what's the word I'm looking for? Any patrolling. We wouldn't do patrolling. We wouldn't do policing in that regard. They wouldn't go unless they're called to go somewhere. So we would sanction them as a fully reactive force because we would focus on the prevention of crime on the systemic level, if all of those make sense.
Yeah, so I guess I'm trying to understand that you have like essentially like a cutoff of crime that you want people to stop pursuing, or I guess police to stop pursuing. So it sounds like economic crime or crime that you feel like is more pointed towards people that are in a low economic
Give me one
situation.
second. Give me
Like
one.
you said, like
I'm
drugs
sorry.
and
Give me a
theft.
second. There are children screaming, and I'm about to. Go. Think we run like a fucking zoo up in this shit? The fuck? All right, sorry about that. Go ahead.
No worries. So I guess it sounds like you have a cutoff point of like crimes and like what you want the police to be able to pursue. like what they should, I guess, like you said, like crime that's more based towards lower economic classes, like theft, like drug crimes and things of that nature. But like obviously you would identify that like prisons have been around forever because like there are just people that need to be locked up, right?
But locked up in what regard? Because what I typically ask people is, what does a prison accomplish? Right now, a prison accomplishes nothing.
Thank you,
right?
Bill.
All that happens is you go into prison, you get out, and typically you commit the same crime again. We have a recidivism of 50 to 75%, depending on how our economy is doing, right? So what is the point of a prison?
I feel like
if
I
it's
could
not...
specifically speak to this point because I've been incarcerated, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like obviously I've seen like people just not turn their lives around, and you know what I mean. I think that becomes like a more innate choice. So I agree with you in a lot of the things you're saying about like the systemic problem of it being like a society-based problem, where I think if you try to focus on building people up, that can work. But I also think that on an individual basis, individuals have to want to change themselves. So I think we should focus more or less on accomplishing those factors, because I mean at the end of the day,
yeah,
the
but we can't accomplish
right?
we can't accomplish those factors when the systems are designed the way they are. Right? It's really hard to accomplish people wanting to better themselves when class mobility is really difficult in the United States. Typically, you stay in the class you were born in and you don't tend to move from that class. It's really hard to focus on these when we've created a system in like intercities where we systemically have defunded schools and we don't provide adequate childcare to parents that have to work one or more jobs or two or more jobs just to feed their kids. It's really hard to do this when we have created a school to prison pipeline. It's hard to do these. It's hard to say how much we should just be telling people figure it out when we've created an economic system that makes it difficult to figure it out. Right? There's so many more things surrounding this, like the fact that have you ever heard of the paradox of like how expensive it is to be poor?
Yeah, I think I understand the concept.
Yeah. So knowing that poverty is actually super expensive, we know that people don't have the disposable income that they would need. What is it? I think it's like most Americans can't afford a surprise $500 bill, right? Like if they get a $500 like surprise bill, they wouldn't be able to afford it. I don't remember what the exact percentage is. But
no, I think that you're right, but I think that that's not. I think that maybe more in cause that might be more a case of like American spending habits and like how we teach people to spend money, and how like I think culturally we have a bad spending habit in general. Like I know that you're saying that like, oh well, you know, it's costing to be poor and stuff like that, but at its base I really feel like it comes from more of people not understanding how to save money and spending money unwisely. I think that you would agree that people spend money badly, right? Like it is obviously way cheaper to be able to buy food at the grocery store and prepare meals, and it costs more time and effort, but it's so much more expensive to get fast food.
Well, wait, but how do you couple this? How do you couple this with how many Americans are living in food deserts where they don't have access to a walkable grocery store? This is what I'm talking about. We have systems that have been designed hold on, I just want to pull it up. I think it's like 60 million Americans are living in food deserts currently. It's a lot. So like, what do we do? What do we do for these people who are in these areas where they don't have these walkable these walkable amenities where they're able to do this?
I guess my main questions would be, what is considered to be walkable? Like, and then on top of that, I would also say that like there becomes like an innate problem where like, I guess if we're saying that people live in a more rural area and there doesn't happen to be a grocery around, but there's like McDonald's and stuff, I figured that those people, like, just like, you know, before in olden times, you make your trip into town and you're able to like, you know, get what you need and then be able to go back out of town.
Yeah, but again, this is making a lot of assumptions, right? There are people, especially poor people, the people that live close to or under the poverty line, who don't have the time because they're working 40 plus, 60 plus, 80 plus hour work weeks, right? They don't have the time to take multiple hours out of their day to walk all the way to a grocery store. And that's assuming there's a grocery store in walking distance. Some of these food deserts, the grocery store may be a 30-minute drive by car, right? That's assuming they're able to walk it, right? This isn't accounting for anybody with disabilities. This isn't accounting for people with multiple children who have to equate their schedules this way, right? I understand this concept that Americans have of like personal responsibility. I get that. But I think it's hard to say how much somebody's personal responsibility kicks in when we look at the way these systems have been designed to force feed poverty so that capitalism has a consistent influx of workers.
I guess my main thing that I would want to ask you is, do you believe that Americans have bad spending habits?
In like, sure. I mean, I believe like anybody can have a bad spending habit, sure. But no, I don't know that I would. I wouldn't. I wouldn't say average. I wouldn't say en masse.
I really want to drive this home. I haven't been very I've been letting you speak and stuff. But
yeah,
I really
go ahead.
like to drive this home. Do you think that Americans en masse have bad spending problems?
No.
All right. I think that you are factually wrong here.
Okay.
And,
do you have any proof?
I don't have a machine in front of me here, but I'm sure that you can pull it up on stream if you'd like. Hit him with the screen display.
What would you want me to look up? I mean, I would argue
I guess you would look up. Sorry.
Well, I would just say I would look at like two examples to sort of drive my point at home. One, most Americans.
I would like to bring this up. I would like to just bring it up on stream. Right?
Bring what?
Look up. I just want you to Google American spending habit studies. Right. Let's just look at the first one. Let's find out what it says. Let's just read it on stream. Let's learn something. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you're right. You know. Let's learn something together.
So when I look up American spending habits, the very first thing that comes up is Empower.com. It says more than 2 in 5 of Americans say that they treat themselves monthly, while 21% indulge in non-essential spending at least weekly. Emotional catalysts that trigger the most spending are celebratory moments, 32%, and boredom, 25%. While job-related stress has prompted 20% of Americans to open their wallet. So none of which being the majority. So the first thing would, none of this would be the majority. It would all be the minority of people.
Well, first of all, I think that maybe you're reading that like a little incorrectly. Let's rewind. These percents don't say that they don't overlap, right? And that they don't cover multiple groups. So I think that instead of reading one part of the study, we should open it and ingest it and develop it.
I have it up.
I think that's a big problem.
I have it up.
You're telling me that the study here, it totally consists of 2 sentences, and that's you might be reading a recap or understanding of the study.
No,
but if we read the actual study,
do you have the actual study pulled up in front of you?
I think I told you I don't have a machine in front of me.
Okay.
But I think I'm also insisting that we read it in front of chat. I'm
literally reading it right now.
You are.
I'm literally reading it right now.
Awesome. Hell yeah. You got it pulled up?
I quite literally read it to you word for word.
Well, you quoted me like one sentence, and
I didn't.
At the beginning of every study, there's normally like a recap of what the finding of the study might be.
If we're looking at these percentages, even if they overlapped, they wouldn't reach a majority percentage, because that's not how overlapping percentages work. If 21% of people who are the 42% that do this, the 21% would still be in the 42%. That's just how percentages work.
Again, I think there might be a misunderstanding, but because essentially you're saying that if 30% of a people and then 15% of people that can't overlap, or that can't be adjusted as a total that also exists on top of that. If we're looking
reading
numbers outright isn't understanding.
I'm not reading numbers outright. What I'm doing is looking at what the words are saying. They're saying 42% of Americans treat themselves monthly, right? They treat themselves monthly, right? This would mean that the 21% who indulge in non-essential spending would be treating themselves monthly. The 25% that spend because of boredom would be treating themselves monthly. The 32% who celebrate by spending would be treating themselves monthly, right? These would be people who are engaging in this habit. Okay, but again, this is why I was saying we should look at other things here than just like what the first thing in Google says. We can talk about the fact how when people received the COVID stimulus checks, we saw most of that money go towards savings accounts. We can look at how most people are just not spending at all right now because of the way the economy is running. Right? There's multiple factors at play here.
Well, I don't know if I can honestly. I don't have the evidence, I guess, to refute you on a claim here, so I'm not going to try to refute you. I think that there's just a base disagreement at what we feel like is causing a lot of financial distress in these homes. Like, I'm sure that your personal experience might be of this and might be of this.
I'm not using personal
but my personal experience. No. I'm just saying that you might have a personal experience that's contrary to mine, or others might have a contrary experience with mine. But I think that, like, for the most part, people just have super bad spending habits, and people will do
but you're
things
not
that
able
are
to
super
back
unwise.
this up with anything.
I'm sorry?
You haven't been able to back this up with anything except asking me to try to back up your claim.
No,
they?
I think
Maybe.
I actually just told you. I think that's how I started with the entirety of the situation, was that I don't have any evidence, and this is a totally arbitrary point of view. It's my understanding and my experience. But I think that this experience is parodied a lot more than I think that people want to understand. I think that the idea that everything in our systemic system is terrible and bad isn't the truth, because there are obviously people that are doing, they're at least doing well enough to survive. And I don't mean oh my God, we're living out here, we're barely eating. But I think most people live in relative comfort and ease.
Yeah, so this is my issue, right? My issue is I've provided you evidence for the things that I have said, right? I've provided evidence of these systemic factors and how they influence things, where you just keep saying, well, I feel that it's not true, which fine.
I feel I'm very open to that. I feel like I'm also just
yes, but if that feeling isn't
outright.
backed
also,
with anything,
you haven't provided any evidence.
That's quite literally not true.
All you have said, it absolutely is.
It's literally not.
I'm sorry. Can you please cite me the evidence that you have here?
Yeah, we can go into the multitudes of things I've said. So first and foremost, I talked about food deserts. I can give you the exact numbers for food deserts from the USDA. I can give you the exact numbers if you want for food deserts. But to say that food deserts aren't a factual thing that happens would be wrong. So this is a claim that I have made that is based in a factual reality that there are food deserts in America. And those food deserts affect multiple
I don't
people.
think that I'm disputing that claim. I think my main dispute is that what considered a food desert, I think, might be a little ridiculous, or might be maybe out of the realm of what is feasible. Because a food desert, right, even has the connotation behind it that it's there is no food to be had here. But we don't have mass starvation in the United States. I'm not saying that there is no starvation.
Food deserts don't mean that there's starvation. So this would just be a mischaracterization of what the argument is saying. Food deserts don't mean that people are hungry, are starving. That's not what I ever said either. It means your access to healthy and affordable food is going to be harder than somebody who lives in an area that is more affluent. Right? Your access to these things are going to be harder. That's what food deserts are. That's what I said from the beginning. Like I said, it may take somebody 30 plus minutes by car just to get to the grocery store, which means just to walk to the grocery store is going to be an endeavor that somebody may not be able to make every day doing X, Y, or Z. Because they may be working too much. They may have children that they have to watch. They may, there are multiple factors here. I'm not painting anything in one broad brush, which is what I think happens when you go, well, it's up to the person. I think that is that is too much of a generalization and paints everything in a broad brush instead of looking at the nuance of the conversation.
All right, brother. Well, hey, I feel like I have a lot I could say, but I have to go give my little guy a shower, so I'm out of here.
All right.
I appreciate the conversation, though, man. It was pretty civil.
All right, no problem.